At first, you're everything to everybody because
Yeah.
you need a check to keep those lights on.
Yep.
Second phase, you're something for everybody. You know what you do, but not really yet who you do it for.
Yeah.
Third phase, you're something for somebody.
Welcome to the Founders Mentality Season 2. I have a guest on here that if anybody follows me on some of the public speaking I do around town, you've noticed that sometimes when I'm speaking, I'm sitting next to kind of a tour of people that have decided not to hire me. And this episode is going to be no different, but don't worry about it. There's a good reason behind it, and I think we'll probably dive into that a little bit. But I'm super thrilled to have this guest because a lot of people throw around the term rock star founder, and it's just not really earned. But in this case, this guy truly is a rock star founder. He's just a rock star. Founder aside, he's just a rock star. So Darin Lynch, welcome to the Founders Mentality.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I think let's lower our expectations a little bit. But thank you for that. Happy to be part of this. Happy to be part of your class.
I have a ton of respect for you. I have a ton of, I love the way you conduct yourself. I love the way that you run the shop. I love the work that your shop does. So in my eyes, you're a rock star, and that's just the way it's going to be because this is my show and I can say whatever I want.
I've been called worse, so that's okay.
There you go. So real quick, this first little bit here, this is where you get to kind of give me the little elevator pitch so that our listeners know who you are and what you do. So do you want to kind of give us that quick little elevator pitch here?
Sure. From a work perspective, I'm the founder and CEO of Irish Titan. Mm-hmm. We are an e-commerce agency, but we really specialize in delivering those services within a business first, online second perspective. That's our why for you Simon Sinek fans. We've actually trademarked that. It's framed and hanging up by our front door.
This is true.
So our why is business first, online second, and then what we do is e-commerce agency.
Yep.
The how in between there is partnerships, not transactions.
Right.
So that's what Irish Titan does. That I started 15 years ago. Yep. Outside of that, because I don't want to be defined by only that. Mm-hmm. I have two daughters, 20 and 15, that I try to spend a lot of time with. They're at ages where they don't really care all that much about spending time with me. But that's a big part of what I try to do too.
They're at ages though where they need to spend time with you because they're both driving and they want really nice cars, right? So they need to at least be on your good side.
Correct. Yeah. That's true. Especially since I just put a new stereo in my daughter's car.
There you go. There you go. And one of them is probably, at college or getting ready?
She's a junior down at University of Iowa.
University of Iowa.
She's a Hawkeye.
Okay.
Go Hawkeyes.
There you go. There you go. So my background has always been in marketing capacity, in a business development role in a marketing shop, right? So I've gone up against Irish Titan in my career a handful of times, which is always fun. I think I lost more than I won against you, but who's keeping track? That's fine. Regardless, it was always fun to just watch your business grow kind of on the periphery. And I've never asked you about where this kind of came from, what those first days were really like of starting Irish Titan. Can you dive into that just a little bit? Like what was that first aha moment for you that you needed to start your own shop? What were you doing before you did that? Maybe let's dive into what that first team makeup looked like, those sorts of things. What were you doing before Irish Titan?
Sure. And so kind of a broad question, so I'll try to dive in and not talk for the whole half hour answering this.
You can talk as long as you want. People have heard me talk plenty.
Well, most agency founders are tacticians. And what I mean when I say that is there's this leadership model that talks about 5 archetypes that leaders fall into, either trailblazer, architect, coach, manager, or tactician. Okay. And tacticians are people who are good at whatever it is the company does.
Yep.
So most agency founders are designers or developers or maybe strategists, or sometimes they work at another agency, spin out and take a book of business with them.
Okay.
I didn't have that background. My origin story was actually on the other side of the table, particularly from a corporate IT perspective. So prior to starting Irish Titan, I was CIO at Second Swing Golf, which I always joke is ironic because I was a pretty crappy golfer. Prior to that, I was at Wilson's Leather. Before that, some other things. Mm-hmm. And I came out of the IT world. At Wilson's is where I started to accumulate pretty significant digital responsibility, particularly e-commerce, put in giant e-commerce systems there. Had full operational responsibility, but was frustrated with my lack of ability to have true impact on company P&L.
Yeah.
So I was looking to get out of IT. when some former employees of mine were at Second Swing Golf, and they said, hey, we're looking for a CIO. You should come over here. And so even though I'm not much of a golfer, big sports fan, and that was during Tiger's first run, there was a lot of fun in the industry. So I went and interviewed and liked it, but I said, I'm not going to take the position if I don't have P&L responsibility. So they gave me P&L responsibility for everything digital. So on day one, we had a one-page crappy website. About 6 months later, we had a e-commerce site that was successful, and we still ended up filing bankruptcy 3 years later.
Sure.
When the bank appointed a receiver, they stepped in. They kept the CFO to handle the bank account, and they kept me to do everything else, and started to cut the rest of the executive team. So for 4 months, I wound down Irish Titan. Excuse me, did not wind down Irish Titan. Let's hope that never happens. Wound down Second Swing, which has now come out of bankruptcy. The founder has purchased it, and they're doing great, and it's a good team over there.
Great.
But at the time, those 4 months, I was liquidating inventory, closing stores, trying to maintain the staff that we needed during this public bankruptcy. And when I walked out and literally shut off the lights was when I decided I was going to start Irish Titan.
Wow.
Because I was going to succeed or fail on my own merits at that point. And I felt like, even though I wasn't a tactician, to close the loop back to the point that started this, I felt like I had ideas about a better way to provide digital and specifically e-commerce services.
Yeah, yeah. So how long, what was the gap between the day you flipped the light switch off there and turned the lights on at Irish Titan?
I guess I don't know the exact number of days and the exact dates. I know when I started Irish Titan was 4/5/4, April 5th, 2004. So I do know that.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact number of days.
Yeah.
Our beginnings were sort of scrambled, right? Like I heard a guy speak one time in a lunch. It talked about businesses go through 3 stages in their life cycle. I mean, be interested to hear if you.
I can't wait to know which one I'm
echo
in.
this, right?
Yeah.
At first, you're everything to everybody because you need to check to keep those lights on.
Yep.
Second phase, you're something for everybody. You know what you do, but not really yet who you do it for.
Yeah.
Third phase, you're something for somebody. You know what you do and who you do it for.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of Irish Titan, we were very clearly in that first stage.
Yeah.
I was bootstrapping it. I didn't have investors. I didn't leverage any family money or anything like that. And so I was doing consulting. I was doing retail consulting, technology consulting. We were doing networking. And by networking, I don't mean getting together at WeWork, which didn't exist back then.
This is still fun, though, but yes, you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
I was running cable. Because Wi-Fi didn't even exist back then.
Right.
Or if it did, it was in its infancy.
Yeah.
So we were doing all kinds of things at first. And so the first employee I hired was a guy named Tegan, who still in good contact with, who was a bit of a unicorn. He was a good designer and developer, really talented technically and with user experience.
Yeah.
And so he could do all the tactician stuff that I couldn't.
Yep.
And I did everything else.
Yeah.
And then I guess the rest is history.
Literally, you were networking. You were running cabling in those early days.
Yes.
This is so.
Amongst other things.
This is great, though. I mean, like, let's just do this, right? Let's just go. Don't let anything get in your way. Figure out what the market actually needs. That's really, really funny. But also, when you think about where the internet was when you started that, it's also not that funny. I mean, the internet itself was kind of a hodgepodge, crazy sort of environment. The agencies in town that were building websites, I mean, this was kind of in the infancy of a lot of that stuff. Those first e-commerce sites that were out there, I mean, you were a part of a lot of those very first e-commerce sites. I mean, the e-commerce site you built for Wilson's Leather was likely the first e-commerce site they ever had.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was actually at that point.
The first e-commerce site I was ever involved in was 1999.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So I've been in the space for a long time, and it's crazy to think about running cable, networking, right? But it was 2004, 2005.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah. And like you said, I was just getting out there and I was pounding the pavement and I was working and I was seeing where the market was going to take us. And I had a vision for what I wanted to do. I actually had 3 different ideas.
Okay.
One was what we've become, the e-commerce agency. That was really my leading idea. I also had some ideas around CRM because that's the other thing I had done on the corporate side of things a lot. Was some CRM work, and I did like that. And then the third idea was actually a fitness technology product on my Palm Pilot.
Okay.
That actually might have flown if I knew then the people that I know now.
Yeah.
So I knew the market might take us someplace, so I wanted to see what was going to happen.
I mean, if you would have made any other little direction shifts, you could have been the next Peloton or the next Mark Benioff with what you just described right there.
Yeah.
So. I think you failed on your. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
No, that's great.
2 strikes.
Yeah, 2 strikes, man. You took this one. No, this is great. This is great. I love this though. So I mean, culture. One of the things that I guess I should go back here because I did tease at the beginning that you passed on me for a role, and so I should explain the story behind that. The reason I approached you to work for Irish Titan was company culture. I saw an agency that had a lot of enthusiasm and just a ton of promise. And like I said, I had gone up against you on some work, and so I knew what you were capable of. I had seen the work, and so while I was creating this business, we sat down, and I'll never forget that conversation because it was one of the more validating conversations I had when I was trying to start this business. It actually pushed me in the right direction.
Good.
I was being very honest with everyone I was interviewing with. I'm working on building a company, and it's going to be a SaaS product. I have no idea when this is actually going to take off. I have no idea if customers will grab on in 2 months or 5 years. I have no idea.
Yep.
But I was being very honest with everyone. And I remember you just looking at me and saying, here's the thing. If you weren't building this business, I'd hire you in a heartbeat. But this business that you're working on, I believe in that, and I think it's going to turn into something, and I think you should just keep focusing on that right now. And I remember walking away from that meeting and I wasn't even upset that I didn't get the job.
Right.
I was just excited and motivated that I was going to keep working on my own thing.
Right.
And I'm sure you, now knowing your backstory, it was flavored by your own background is where that comment was coming from.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit, though, about the culture at the company. I'm sure that it's morphed a lot over the last 15 years. I'm sure that things were really, really crazy in the first days when you had 2-3 people working there and everybody was really close friends. And, now how many employees work at Irish Titan?
30 something, I think it is.
So this is a much different animal at this point.
Yeah.
We have HR departments now, right?
Well, actually, we don't. You're looking at the HR department.
Oh,
so it's
no,
amazing that
we're all
still
in trouble.
business. Correct.
Actually, I'm not that surprised by this at all. But I mean, talk about that because clearly culture is an important thing to you.
Right. Yeah. And before I dive into that, I do want to circle back to our first meeting because I remember that too. And, I think that what I saw in you was someone who was passionate about what you were doing, even that germ of an idea that you had at that point. And you don't see that very often.
Sure.
And when we were talking about us, you were passionate too, but there was a different level of what your eyes looked like when you would talk about what you wanted to do. And you seemed to have some vision around that, and you just don't see that very often. So I wanted to encourage that. People encouraged me in the early days of Irish Titan, and I wanted to return that favor to people that I saw that same gleam. Yeah. And so...
and we'll clarify that encouragement does not come with any equity. So, I mean, I appreciate the encouragement, but no, I'm kidding. But I'm kidding. Yeah. No, but thank you for that. That was an awesome day in my life.
Yeah. And as far as culture, I think I actually might say that I don't know that our culture has changed and morphed that much over the 15 years.
Yeah.
I think that we have sometimes performed more true or less true to our culture at certain points in our growth where we have more or less growth pains. But our culture has been pretty consistent. I see your Guy Kawasaki book over there.
Yeah.
And
I just met him last night.
Oh, I know. I couldn't go to that. And now I'm also equally frustrated because Simon Sinek's in town in a few weeks, and I can't go to that now, and I had tickets.
I'm going to go to it, and I'm gonna live stream it right to your phone. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Right. I'm not complaining too much because I'm going to be at South by Southwest speaking, so that should be fun too.
That's going to be even better. There you go.
But the two authors that have been most influential to me are Guy Kawasaki and Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
And in Art of the Start, one of the things Guy Kawasaki talks about is don't worry about your brand, don't worry about your culture as much, like build a product or service where you have paying customers.
Yep.
And so when I started Irish Titan, I was a little bit older than I think I thought I would be when I started my own company, and that I think a lot of people thought I would be because I was, 34, 35, something like that. Yep. And I had the fortune of learning a lot through the leaders and managers that I worked for. Yep. And so when I started Irish Titan, by that point, I had a pretty firm point of view about how I wanted to behave, what mattered to me. I kind of wanted to start the kind of company I always wanted to work for.
Yeah.
So our culture from the beginning, I think, has been pretty consistent with what it is now. What did change in 5-ish years after we started it was it became clarified in how I could articulate it.
Yeah.
And it's been consistent since then.
Yeah.
So our culture is really, I always talk about the fact that there's 3 legs to our stool. The first is our golden circle, Simon Sinek speak. Our why is business first, online second. We talk about that with prospects. And I talk about that probably even more so with potential Titans. I talk about if you're a developer, it's not about bits and bytes. If you're one of our strategists, it's not about keywords, et cetera. It's about how we put together all of our talents to support our clients' e-commerce digital needs. So that's one of the legs. The other leg, the second leg of the stool, is POTUS, which is not a political reference. All right, because those are awfully dicey in today's day and age. Different podcast.
Yeah, we don't go those roads. No.
But that's the acronym for our 5 core values, which are passion, ownership, teamwork, impact, and skills. And I expect everybody every day to demonstrate those in their own authentic way. Not everybody's the same from a passion perspective, right? Like I might stand up and talk maybe too much sometimes, and other people might not be as comfortable standing up, but that doesn't mean that either one of us can perform at a different level of passion. Like we all should be passionate in our own ways. And then the third leg of our stool is that we are a place that isn't great for snowflakes. We want to be a place where people can be real, can be authentic, can give a joke, take a joke, laugh at a joke, but that only works in a culture of respect. Right? So we need everybody to respect each other regardless of what they look like or what they do outside of work, because then that's when you can be real. And so those are the 3 legs of our stool. And it's been that way for a long, long time now.
I've been to a handful of your company parties that are always at an Irish bar, very on brand. And you see that. You see that in everybody that not only works with you, but the customers that come to those events as well. It really, you have done a great job of attracting your tribe, whether it's people that are working within the office or customers coming to the doors. It's really, really obvious, and that's awesome to see. So you've done a great job with that. If anybody is listening for the typical things on this show that I love to point out that founders are kind of getting into, hopefully you've picked up on Darin's background. He worked in this space before he decided to do something in this space. And that is something that I always like to call out because I just truly believe it's an incredibly important thing. I see too many people trying to start businesses in spaces that they don't have any true experience and knowledge, and they haven't really found the gaps, and they don't really know how this is going to pivot. Now, you talk about when you started, you had kind of 3 ideas and it could go one way or the other, but it's very clear why you ended up where you went. It was kind of your background kind of pushed you in that way. It was probably, in a way, the more comfortable route to go. It was where you had the experience and more of the knowledge, I think. But regardless, that's, I think, what made this an agency that could last. When you look at the agencies in town, how many of them disappear within their first 3 years of operation? It'll make your head spin, especially here in Minneapolis. There's like 15 agencies I could hit a rock with out my window right now. And unfortunately, probably 10 of them won't be here in 3 years.
That's true. I found a note a few months ago about a list of competitors from probably 2008, 2009, and almost all of them are gone. Local agencies at the time. And almost all of them are gone. And the agency world really is fluid. Right? I think that one of the reasons is a lot of agencies choose to staff and resource with freelancers, contractors, offshore resources, some combination of those and employees. And I totally understand that model. But we have an employee only, a Titan only model. And that really sets us apart. There has been more investment in legacy by those who join our clan and are working with the same people every day, working in the same process every day, and are contributing to what we're building. Because I think that doesn't happen very often.
One thing that I wanted to ask you specifically about, since this is the founder's mentality, we talk about founding businesses and kind of the story around the founder, but what I think you might also have some pretty good insight on is how the current state of e-commerce has helped a lot of people become entrepreneurs themselves. Have you seen a lot of that? Do you guys work with a lot of that in your, do you?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So e-commerce is really, I think there are countless instances where I don't really know the logic before I make a decision. I'm sort of instinctive, right? And then later I find out, oh, that's why I made that decision, or why I shouldn't have made that decision maybe. But e-commerce has really turned out to be that perfect intersection of what does drive me from a business perspective.
Yeah.
And that is that it is the combination of technology and marketing and business and design that is P&L driven, right? So it's a way for people to actually create revenue.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're an entrepreneur, you might have a job 9 to 5 somewhere that you like well enough that you want to keep doing that. But part of your passion is maybe making homemade bracelets out of beads that you make yourself.
Yep.
And e-commerce lets you do that, lets you pursue your passions. On the other hand, you might have a job you don't like and have an idea about something you want to sell that you want that to become your business.
Right.
E-commerce lets you do that.
Yeah.
So it creates jobs, and it creates jobs outside of just technology, right?
Yeah.
Because a merchant of any size needs to have customer service, needs to have fulfillment, even if they have seasonality, right? And so you're creating jobs for all classes, all skill sets, and that stuff matters to me. I grew up on a farm in Iowa.
Right.
And so I like the variety of jobs that what we do can create.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some fun use cases? I mean, tell me about, has anybody approached you at like the really early stage where they just had this like crazy idea to get something going and you guys just worked with them and it turned into like this insane success? Or do you typically start with more well-established businesses in your practice?
Yeah, it sort of varies, especially earlier in our history when we were a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
Then we tended to, at that point, attract more startups.
Yeah.
You know, now we're doing pretty sophisticated projects. We still work with some startups, not as many as a percentage of our overall makeup.
Yeah.
But we've had some really interesting businesses over the years. We've had a lady who wanted to crowdsource children's clothing designs and then allow other people to buy those and then create their own clothes.
Okay.
That was a pretty fun project.
Yeah.
We've had Coolie Bar here in town.
Okay.
One of our clients, they have SUV blocking clothing.
Okay.
Right? And they're actually pretty good size.
Yeah.
So they're very cause-based, but they're a really sizable merchant already.
Yeah.
And so we've really had a variety of people come through our doors. And e-commerce really covers a broad swath, right?
Yeah.
A few years ago, we had a mixture of people from agricultural products to medical device to some more, shall we say, racy in the adult space.
Right.
You know, and you have to sort of think through how all those fit together.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, the thing that I love about where e-commerce is at right now, and I bet this is one of the things that it's got to drive you nuts, right? Because so when I was building websites, the bane of our existence were things like WordPress, right? Where people would just come to us and be like, yeah, I already built my website. I don't need you to build a website, right?
Right.
And it's like, well, but hold on, we have a lot of expertise around this. There's a reason that we would go custom with this. There's a reason we would do this. But the thing that I love about things like WordPress and like WooCommerce and all those Shopify, all that stuff, is that it allows people to get to that MVP stage so quickly, so quickly. And so I'm assuming that you probably do get a lot of inquiries from people that, you know, the phone call goes down the road of, you know what, this is a great idea. You should definitely move forward with this, but here's some really quick ways you can do this yourself. Maybe come back to us in 2 years when this has kind of proven itself out and you have more revenue coming in the door. Because I know I had those conversations all the time. And also, it always amazed me how many people would never move on that then.
Right.
Even when you tell them this is exactly how you can get this going, it'll probably take you 3 hours of homework to figure out how to stand this first site up yourself, and you're going to be able to start something up tomorrow. It was amazing how many people wouldn't move forward with that. But what I like to always tell people is, look, technology right now, everything is so easy and at our fingertips. And if you have an idea, there's really no excuse to just get it started.
Yeah. We have people come to us all the time that either have something they've already built that they want to graduate from, or something that they built that they need fixed, or something that they could build on their own. Right? Like it's really flattering when people come to us and want to work with us when they're not a fit yet for us.
Right.
And I say that with all due respect, right? Because we're not a fit for some companies too that we might want to work with, or certain people that I want to sit around the table learning from, right? I need to continue to grow to be sitting at that table. And so I say that with all due respect, but we have people come to us pretty frequently that I've been waiting to work with you guys, and I think this is the opportunity. And it's just not quite there yet. You know, and so we encourage them, do this, or maybe start with a Wix site,
Yeah.
right? Which Wix didn't even exist back then.
No.
And
No.
when I started Irish Titan, WordPress, I don't even know if it existed, but if it did, it was hardly a thing.
I don't think it existed 15 years ago. I mean, it was probably a fairly fast follow after you started that, but it was...
Probably 7 or 8 when it came
Yeah,
around,
but it
I'm
still
guessing.
didn't really matter
Right.
because when it first started, it truly was just a blogging platform.
Right.
And the plugins for things like shopping integrations, you didn't really see those being too easy for most people to just implement
Right.
on their own until maybe 8 years ago, I want to say.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, when I one of the seminal moments in my planning stages for Irish Titan was when Second Swing moved from Minnetonka up to Plymouth.
Yep.
And by that point, we had the e-commerce site. Even though I had some developers on staff and had a really good staff, I had to call our e-commerce provider to change the address on our website. And quite honestly, that pissed me off. Like, I kind of have a short fuse anyway,
Sure.
and I have a short fuse for things that I think are dumb. Yeah. And I thought it was stupid that I had to call them to change the address on our website.
Yeah.
So when I started Irish Titan, from day one, we had a content management system.
Yeah.
We built our own at first.
Yep.
And I did that because I didn't want clients to have to call us to change their address.
Right.
I wanted them to work with us on more strategic activities, more complex and sophisticated activities,
Yeah.
not the mundane.
Yeah.
And back then, that was super rare.
Right.
Other agencies and other people I talked to were like, well, why would you let them change address on their own instead of having to call you and pay you to do it?
Right.
I'm like, because I don't want to do it.
Right.
And now, nobody launches a site without a content management system.
Nope. Yeah, I mean, I've like I said, I've been in the agency setting for 15 years of my life. The last 10 years that I was in that system, everybody had a content management system of some sort.
Yeah.
Either it was something we built custom for them, it was on a WordPress theme that they could update, or there's also tools that allow you to do that yourself as well, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm totally with you on the short fuse. I mean, there's so many things that they just shouldn't be so challenging.
Right.
It shouldn't take so long.
Right.
I just had an experience just this morning. I was trying to just download a plugin for Final Cut Pro to just put some new thing on a video. Took me like an hour and a half to get this thing right.
Right.
And, I'm going through tech support on a chat window, and it was a nightmare.
Right. It's like I was just telling somebody over lunch that I hate drama.
Yeah.
I love shenanigans and mischief, but I hate drama.
Yeah.
Right? Because shenanigans and mischief are the things that I can intentionally
Those are
do.
fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Drama is like unnecessary.
Yeah. I think that the thing that you and I have in common, and I'm shocked that that we don't hang out, right? The only time I see you is at the company events and just kind of around town, but like I think we're both enablers. Yeah. I think we're both the kind of people that when we're around people that want to have fun, we know how to let them have fun.
Right.
We know how to enable them to have fun.
Right. We're Irish Titan, not Amish Titan.
Exactly, right? Yeah, and that's why I'm so looking forward to the party. Is it next week, 2 weeks away?
2 weeks from today.
Yeah, 2 weeks away. So, and I can't wait for that one, right? I always run into so many great people there. It's always a great time. The cheers are always aplenty. And it's great, right? The food's fun. So we don't need to announce where that's going to be on the show because honestly, this episode's going to be released after the party even happens. So people are just going to be upset that they missed it.
Right.
So they'll have to get on your newsletter for next year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they can join.
Yeah, that event has grown a lot.
Yeah.
You've been to quite a few of them now.
Yeah.
And it started down in Bloomington at Port Richards, I think back when it was majors and there were 6 of us around a table. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And now we have the whole Irish pub. And actually, this is going to be announced at the event in a couple of weeks, but we're going to be changing it from quote unquote client partner appreciation night to shenanigans for good.
Nice. Okay.
Because we do a raffle where we raise money for a charity for the raffle winners of their choice.
Yep.
And so we're going to rebrand it because we still have people that will email me or text and say, hey, I know I'm not a client or I'm not a partner, kind of still coming.
Yeah.
Actually, we want all the good people in the community there.
Yeah.
Right. It's just there's no content to it.
Yeah.
There's no structure. There's no program.
Yeah.
Other than the raffle. I just want good people having a good time at our event.
Yeah. I thought it was great when I got the invite. It said, don't even worry, like, please RSVP just so we know you're going to be there. But don't even worry about bringing a ticket. We don't do these sorts of things. Bring whoever you want to. You don't need to ask us. Just everyone is welcome here.
Right.
It's a pretty ballsy move, honestly. Like, one of these years, you're going to have like 500 people show up for food and drinks.
Right. Well, I remember in college, we had some parties get out of control. And so that might happen at some point. Maybe we're trying. right? But it's become a thing. Like we just want. I encourage our Titans.
Yeah.
Bring your friends, bring your coworkers, or your significant others. Like the more people that know us, the better.
Yeah.
And the more that we do to create a sense of community, the better.
Yeah.
And we run into each other at events and stuff around town, but we're slightly outside of the scene.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we're out at West End, which is not all that far.
Yeah.
Like we might be able to see our building if we look over there.
We can look hard enough,
if there weren't things in the way. But that's slightly outside of the scene where everybody here sort of commingles and goes to the same restaurants, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm sort of primal in how I wanted to build things and how I want to build things. Yeah. And so I wanted to kind of carve out our own space.
Yeah.
And that's part of what we're doing with that event too.
Do you think that maybe subconsciously, or maybe you even realize that this evangelism that you're creating came out of learnings from Guy Kawasaki?
Probably. Yeah. I would say that it came from Guy Kawasaki, probably some of the bosses that I had. The best boss I've ever had was still the first boss I had right out of college.
Okay.
And he really quickly taught me about the difference between leadership and management.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough from that point forward to have really good bosses, with the exception of one who shall remain unnamed.
Yeah.
But I still learned a lot from him or her.
Yeah.
Right? Him. But I think that all of those people helped me develop, either intentionally or unintentionally, sort of a sense of self and some clarity around what was important to me.
Yeah.
I didn't create Irish Titan to create a job.
Right.
I created Irish Titan because I felt like there was an opportunity in the market to do what we do in a better way than what I had found.
Yep.
And because I wanted to succeed or fail in my own merits.
Yep.
And because I wanted to create the kind of company that I always wanted to work for.
Yep. I mean, it's so many founders that start businesses. That's the exact playbook as well for them, right?
Yep.
We're stubborn. We know in our hearts we can do it better.
Yep.
And we just want to do it better.
Yep.
Right.
I'm stubborn with my vision, flexible with my details.
There you go.
And entrepreneurship is about being wrong until you're right.
Yes.
It's about making the second decision because your first is often wrong.
Yes.
Right? And decisions are exhausting.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of being an entrepreneur too, is the number of decisions you have to make, because you're making decisions without data.
Yep.
And decisions are exhausting because they require attention, and what requires attention is exhausting.
What's incredible right now, though, I mean, we both work in the digital space. It is so much easier to make quick, rash decisions today and have facts supporting whether or not that was successful so quickly.
Right.
Right. I mean, I talk to my marketing manager about this all the time. Everybody likes to plan out what we're going to do, right? What is the strategy around this? Well, maybe my strategy is that I just want to see if our audience likes this kind of content.
Right.
That's a good enough strategy as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Because I'm going to know 1 hour after I hit publish on anything I do whether or not my audience likes that.
Yep.
And I'm either going to do more of it or I'm going to never, ever touch that again.
Right.
Right. That's valuable to me.
Yep.
And it's way more valuable than talking about anything for any duration of time. I'm one of those guys that I'll just hit record on the camera and say, just go.
Yep.
Let's talk.
Yep.
Let's just talk. Something's going to come out of this. We'll record. We'll chop it up when it's done, and we're just going to see where this goes.
Well, it's sort of like yesterday.
Yeah.
I look at my calendar and realize, oh shit, this podcast is tomorrow. I better check in with Josh and see if there's anything we're supposed to prepare.
Yeah, and I shot you down right away, and I said, we don't plan these. We don't have a discussion before. This is not the way it goes.
And I'm like, I can roll like that.
I don't have time to plan these things out. Right. B, I don't find them to be organic. When I've been on other podcasts before and someone sends me a list of, these are the exact questions I'm going to ask you, I just look at it like, this isn't even fair to the audience. And I literally don't read the questions that they send me. I don't.
Right.
Because I don't want to answer with a pre-recorded, pre-rehearsed loop that's in my head.
Right. It's less authentic.
Absolutely it is, right? And my sole mission right now, a lot of the what I do in sales and with my product is to try to humanize sales. Yep. And so one thing that just plays on a loop in my head is the fact that in real life, in an unedited conversation like we're having right now, I don't have the ability to edit what I say to you personally. Now, I could sit down after this, I could edit this however I want to, but I choose not to. Because I feel like that's removing the human element of what we've created here. Yep. It's okay to stutter. It's okay to pause. It's okay to say the wrong word when you intended to say something else, right? Just like earlier when you accidentally said shutting down Irish Titan.
Right.
We're not editing that out.
Right.
That's a human slip.
Yep.
Right. And so I think that that's important if you're trying to let people know exactly who you are and what you're about.
Right. Well, I think especially with your series, it's not about e-commerce metrics or statistics.
Sure.
I didn't need to check Gartner to see the latest trends on what platforms they're recommending. Right. If I can't come in here and talk about Irish Titan and our history and what matters to me and the values that I care about and the legacy I want to try to build and leave for my daughters, et cetera, then I better get the hell out of the business.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Because I should be able to talk about that stuff without preparing.
Exactly. And that's the other reason I don't like to prepare.
Right.
If you're going to ask me a question and I don't know the answer to it, I would much rather just say, you know what, that's not something I talk about.
Right.
Can you ask me another question?
Right. So here's a funny little anecdote. So I'm a big fan of the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
And a number of the other chambers of commerce too, but big fan of the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. I've had a great experience with them. And we were hosting an event at our space for them a few years ago, and they wanted me to talk about our story for about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I asked them, well, are there certain things you want me to emphasize? Kind of like I did with you, just to make sure I was going to hit any key points that were important to you.
Yeah.
And you said none.
None.
And they laid out a few things, about like employees and policies and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I grabbed a piece of paper and I was going to write out just some bullets.
Yeah.
That once I write them down, I'll probably never look at it again because having written it down is all I need to remember it.
Yep.
And so the first section they wanted me to cover was where we started.
Yeah.
So on this piece of paper, I wrote where we started. I didn't even get the D. I did STARTE. And then I quit. I'm like, screw this. I'm not going to prepare. I still have that piece of paper underneath my monitor where it says where we started, but it doesn't even have the D in started before I gave up on prep.
That's all you need right there.
Right.
All right, so you alluded to it a little bit. I'm gonna make this the final portion of the show because we've already gone over on time, and I knew we would. I knew I would with you, but that's fine. But you mentioned legacy, the legacy that you're gonna leave for your daughters. I'm curious. I mean, what is the legacy? What is your legacy? What do you hope for your legacy to be?
Big question, but I actually have some point of view around that. So when I saw Simon Sinek back in 2011, I met him in between his TED Talk and when the book came out in a small group setting. Okay. And in the first 5 minutes, I had our golden circle at Irish Titan because business first, online second. We'd already trademarked it. So that's our why. We were already talking about partnerships, not transactions. That's our how. And at that point, our what was websites with a focus on user experience. Yeah. And so I already had that in the first 5 minutes, but then I was trying to figure out my personal golden circle. I was going through a divorce at the time, amicable, and my ex-wife and I co-parent very well together, but divorces still aren't fun, even if they're amicable by divorce standards. So at the time, I was building Irish Titan. I had 2 young daughters. The weeks I had them, I wasn't out partying or chasing anything. The weeks I had them, I was focused on them. I didn't work until after they went to bed. The weeks I didn't have them, I was focused entirely on Irish Titan. I'm not trying to imply that I was a monk, but I was really focused on Irish Titan, and I was networking and doing everything I could to grow the company. So I was sort of trying to figure out, well, why am I really anchored during a time where a lot of people kind of go crazy? Yeah. And what I started to realize, this one took me a couple of months as opposed to the 5 minutes for the work golden circle, was my personal why is to leave a legacy. So the weeks I had my daughters, I wanted to focus on them, to raise them in a way where we would have a good, strong relationship, where they would be strong members of society. And so they're a legacy. Irish Titan is a legacy. I get asked a lot, and I might be riffing too much, so you can edit this out.
No, keep going.
Or edit as you see fit. You're the boss.
There's no editing.
But I get asked a lot about, like, why did I name Irish Titan Irish Titan? Yeah. And so the story is that around St. Patrick's Day, I started to realize, hey, I could name my company Irish something. And I'm not sure how many Guinness and Jameson I was into it, but that was part of it. But I didn't quite have the name. And then at some point, Irish Dragon came to me. Oh. Correct. Wow. And I thought, that's it. I got the company named. Thank you.
You would have lasted maybe a year with that. It would have turned into a dojo.
I love how quickly you provided that, because most people just kind of, oh, really, And I'm like, and thank God I didn't name it that because it sounds too much like a tattoo parlor.
It's bad.
Right? But there was a DJ in Philadelphia, like an amateur weekend wedding DJ, not even an on-air personality, who would not sell me the domain.
Right.
Thank God.
Right.
Again, right?
Someone owns this domain?
Or they did. I haven't checked in years. Right. He wouldn't sell it to me.
I'm going to buy this domain and give it to you for Christmas one of these years.
And I was so set on that. Like, I had a buddy of mine come up with a logo and everything. Yeah. Right. The best business decisions never made.
Okay.
And so then I couldn't get it, so I was resigned to trying to find something else. So I go back to the drawing board. And remember earlier, I said I make a lot of decisions without understanding the logic behind them.
Yeah.
So during this period between giving up on Irish Dragon and before coming up with Irish Titan was when I started to realize actually what my criteria were.
Yeah.
I still have the piece of paper where I wrote it down. It's in my little memory box that has the 3 criteria for what I wanted to come up with.
Yeah.
1, I wanted the name to be catchy and memorable without sounding like it was trying too hard.
Yep.
2, I wanted the name to be open-ended because I was going to bootstrap and I was going to see where the market took me.
Yep.
And I already talked about the 3 ideas I had, right?
Yep.
And if we had named it Fitness Technologies, Inc., if I'd gone down that path, we couldn't be doing what we're doing today.
Right.
And lastly, from the very beginning, I wanted to build something bigger and better than myself.
Yeah.
Something that could outgrow me, that could live beyond me.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want my name on the shingle.
Yeah.
So those were the 3 criteria. And then one day I was playing basketball with the best friends I have outside of work friends. I become friends with a lot of my work people.
Yeah.
But the best friends I have outside of my work world are these guys I've played basketball with for 25 years now.
Yep.
And we were running down the court east to west, and like I'm doing it right because like growing up on a farm, I know my cardinal directions all the time. So east to west on the north side of the court during a fast break when Irish Titan popped in my head.
Yeah.
And I told the buddies, like, hey, I gotta write something down. Yeah. So I'm writing it down. Of course, they're like, Lynch, get back in here, you're screwing the game up. And I went and checked it after lunch, and the domain and the entity were available.
Yeah, that's yours then.
So the legacy piece actually is something real for me. My daughters are older now, and if they ever listen to this, they'll probably roll their eyes at all this sort of stuff. But how I've raised them and tried to co-parent them with my ex-wife, and the focus I put on them in making sure they were the kind of people that I wanted them to be is part of my legacy. Irish Titan, the fact that it's not Lynch Technologies, the fact that it can live beyond me, that's part of my legacy. And whatever everybody else says, eulogy virtues over resume virtues, that's up to everybody else. But those are the pieces that come to mind when I think about legacy.
I love this naming story. Naming, for any founders out there that have ever named their business, it's just a nightmare. I will never forget the horrible sessions that I had with my team in the early days where we were trying to figure out what the heck are we going to call this thing. And funny coincidence that you're talking about naming, because just this morning I read an article that a company called Velocity was acquired by Salesforce. That was the name I really wanted.
Oh, yeah.
And so seeing that this morning, it was just one of those things where it was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
I would have never got the name. They had it trademarked, obviously, but that was a name that I really, really wanted.
Right.
It's one of the hardest things.
It really is. Naming is super hard.
Yeah.
And between Irish Dragon, again, thank God that didn't happen.
I love that. I almost want the tattoo now. I mean, I have ideas.
I still have the logos at home. I know where they are. And Irish Titan, I kept coming up with names that just weren't quite right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that there are some great branding firms in town, Capsule, et cetera, that help people through these exercises.
Yeah.
I don't know if I personally could have been put through an exercise to come up with the right name.
Right.
I felt like that was a personal exercise that I had to subconsciously go through.
Yeah.
And, like playing basketball is different than lifting weights or doing Stairmaster when you can kind of zone out. Like basketball, you have to be in the moment or else you get hit in the head with the ball.
Yes.
And so the fact that popped in my head when I was running down the court, I think really speaks to the subconscious nature of how this works. At least for me, it was super important to me, and it's worked out well for us. Like I like to joke, everything green's a write-off.
Right. Yeah.
And we Irish Titan, not Amish Titan,
right.
And we kind of play up that shenanigan side of things, and like the swag I brought for you that I forgot to give to you already.
This is perfect.
There's a green foam top hat.
Look at that, a stress.
Do you
top
use a
hat.
money clip?
I do now. Yeah,
there's a green money clip for you.
I'm a startup founder. You think I have something to put in this money clip?
Business cards.
Yeah.
Koozie.
Look at that.
And an Irish Titan dog tag.
I have one of these from last year, but I'm going to take another one. Yeah, I love this. We're big on swag together, right? I have more swag for you. I have Sales Reach socks for you that you're going to leave with. You're going to love those. All right, we've gone way over, but I need to point out the best thing. The thing I just love about your company and part of the evangelism that's come out of your company is how well known it is that you shut down on St. Patty's Day. How this is like the biggest day of the year for your company.
Right.
I mean, this is how Irish your company. I mean, it's so on brand. It's
right.
perfect. But when did you start doing that? I mean, come on.
Okay, so like a lot of my stories, not a lot of planning. Right.
You were just too hungover to come in the next day, right?
Well, that's true. Yeah. So the saying that's on our site that you might be referring to also is we're closed only 2 days a year, St. Patrick's Day and the day after. And I do a lot of speaking, and I said that at a bankers convention in front of like a couple hundred bankers, and I said it off the cuff without planning, and they all laugh. I'm like, I better write that down if I got a bunch of bankers to laugh. But it was also true, right? It's like some of the funniest things are true.
Yeah.
And so I remember in early Irish Titan days, we didn't have anything formal on St. Patrick's Day, but I would just tell people like, I'm not going to be here.
Yeah.
And then one year I had a couple of meetings I had to take in the morning. Then I thought, well, I don't really want to be driving anywhere.
Right.
And so we ended up having a party in the office. It turned into a lot of fun. That was mostly impromptu.
Yeah.
Well, then between that year and the next year, I didn't give it any more thought
Yeah.
until a few days prior to St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
One of our Titans said, hey, Lynch, what are we doing for our St. Patrick's Day party this year? And I'm like, I don't know. And then she said, well, are we having it? I'm like, yeah, for sure, we're having it. And she said, well, who's in charge of the planning? And I said, all the employees knew from last year.
Yeah.
So that became the tradition.
Oh, yeah.
Is that every year the employees who are new from the prior year are responsible for the planning. Yep. And it's become a big friendly competition where each year, first of all, is a totally different flavor.
Right.
Like we had an employee a few years ago whose parents, I think, either own or are heavily involved in a winery here in Minnesota. Okay. So she had Irish Titan wine made with our Irish Titan label on it.
That's a keeper.
We have a guy who blends our special whiskey each year. And so each year has a different flavor, but it's also become sort of a contest where they try to one up the previous year to see, who has the more fun. We had a inflatable obstacle course brought in once. And so it's become really, really fun.
Yeah. It's part of the culture, right? And I think it's just one of those things with Guy Kawasaki always talking about creating evangelism, right? Yep. Creating evangelists. That's the kind of thing that does that. The party that you throw at the bar, that's the kind of thing that does that, right? Those are the kinds of things that bring in more customers, more better employees, all the stuff that you're looking for.
Right.
The other thing that I want to touch on real quickly too is I heard Guy say this yesterday, and I loved that he said this. And this is, I know you missed it, but this is kind of a controversial thing to say right now in the business community. When he was done speaking, one of the people in the audience raised their hand. He had mentioned when he started at Apple how they were working 90 hours a week. Yep. And they literally wore hoodies that said 90-hour work week on them. All the Apple Macintosh then employees had these. So somebody raised their hand and asked, well, how do you feel about work-life balance? And I just thought, oh, man, you're in trouble, dude. Why would you even ask this guy this, right? And his response was, look, this work-life balance thing, we got to stop talking about this. I look at life in stages. There are stages where you work your ass off so that you can get to the stage where you don't have to. Yep. And I've never seen anybody get to the stage where they don't have to if they don't go through the stage where they have to. Right. And I think that was really well summarized in kind of how you explained the founding of this business, how you really just put your head down, how you were going through some things when you started this business. You had so many new things happening in your life. It's amazing that you were able to focus on anything. Yeah. But that's what you have to do, because if you hadn't focused, we wouldn't be here right now. Right.
Yeah, I sort of burnt the ships at the shore. When I started Irish Titan, there was no turning back. Yep. And it did give me something to focus on. Yeah. And that work-life balance is an interesting topic. I mean, like I said, I grew up on a farm. My dad really taught me how to work, and my mom really taught me how to be with people. Yeah. And they're both good with both of those. Yeah. But we all have our strengths, right? And work ethic I learned from my dad, and EQ sort of stuff I learned from my mom. Yeah. And so hard work is important to me. And one of the ways I heard what you just said, Guy said, one of the ways I've heard it said is you work in seasons, especially as owners, right? And founders. Like there might be weeks, days, months where you're working all the time. Yeah. And then you have a little bit of a lull where you have like everybody doing what they're well suited for, and there's good mojo, and you can sort of unplug a little bit, but then you're thinking about working a different way. Yeah. Right. So you work in seasons. But The way I think about this work-life balance is an entirely different term, and it's work-life blend.
Yep.
And I heard that from a local guy, Paul Botts, who I think really highly of. He runs Good Leadership Breakfast.
Okay.
And if you think about balance, I always picture sort of a teeter-totter,
Yeah.
right? And it's like either or, like
Yeah.
one on each side.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I want blend.
Yeah.
I bring my daughters, when they were younger, I brought my daughters to work all the time.
Yeah.
I'd go pick them up from school and then bring them back to work.
Yep.
I bring my dog to work.
Yep.
We invite significant others to our holiday party and our other Irish Titan events. I want us all to know each other as people because I do expect people to work hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a sweatshop. If we're working more than, I don't know, 40, 50 hours, something like that's sort of what I expect. More than that for an extended period of time means we need some more people or something's not going quite right.
Yeah.
If we're working less than that, you know what? Then we're not busy enough.
Yes.
And we're not a charity. We're a business that needs to be a viable business so that we can then invest in the community and invest in ourselves for those things beyond business.
The only way you can get that, at least in my experience, is to find people that are as passionate about what you're doing as you are.
Yep.
If people aren't passionate about what they're doing, working more than a 40-hour work week is impossible for them.
Absolutely.
It ruins them.
Yep. That's why POTUS, the P in POTUS is passion.
Yeah.
Because one of the ways I say this is excluding sleeping hours and just doing easy math.
Right.
You're at work more than you're not.
Yes.
So I want people who care where they spend that time and who are passionate about it.
Yeah.
Because I expect people to do really well because I want to take really good care of people.
Right.
And so passion is super important.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't ask you another question. I want to, but we're going to just keep going over and over. I'm going to have to title this one 1 hour with Darin at this point. Longest podcast episode I've done to date. Can you believe that?
Well, I apologize.
No, it's fine. But I'm bored and I got to go. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Thanks, everybody, for listening today. It's always great having you tune in. Make sure to share it with your friends, family. Looking forward to seeing any of the comments on LinkedIn and the website. Looking forward to releasing our next episode, just like we always do, every 2 weeks at thefoundersmentality.com. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Bye. There you go.
I was going to congratulate you on your success. You want to turn it back on?
Well, I mean, if
have me add that,
we're still technically recording, so
right.
I mean, this is unscripted. What were you gonna?
Well,
I
then
mean,
I was
I'm
just
not
gonna-
gonna let flattery not happen.
Right.
Jeez, all right. What?
I was just going to congratulate you on what you've done. Like,
Yeah.
you scratched the surface of what I saw in you when I decided not to hire you. Seriously, though.
Thank you.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I've had a lot of good people come through the door, and you're one of them. And sometimes you can tell they're not going to go do their own thing.
Yeah.
And they could be really great here. And sometimes you're like, they could be really great here, but he's going to be stifled.
Yeah.
So you've scratched the surface of what I saw in you. So congrats.
Thank you. It's been a ton of fun. It's been a lot of hard work.
Yep.
One of the other people I interviewed with around the exact same time called me recently as well, and he just said, he said, "You bastard."
Yeah.
I said, "What?" And he goes, "You sat down and you told me you were going to do this 2 years ago, and here you are doing it." He goes,
Yep.
"Do you know how many people tell me they're going to do something every single day and never do anything?"
Yep.
And I said, "Thank you so much for calling."
Yep.
And just saying that.
Right.
That's fun.
There were a lot of people I was putting, I know we're off the clock now, but there were a lot of people early in Irish Titans day
Yeah.
that I was put in touch with,
Yeah.
successful entrepreneurs around town. And some of them wouldn't meet with me, not because they were being jerks, but because they wanted to kind of test and see if, am I still going to be around in 90 days,
Yeah.
a year, 2 years?
Yeah.
And then most of them, if I circled back again, if there were people that I just knew I needed to connect with, would say, "Hey, congrats on making it."
Right.
Like, a lot of people don't even make it this far.
Right.
And at that point, I was still just this little amoeba trying to find,
Now it's
trying to
something.
get out of networking and running cable.
Now it's something.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.